Well, now we're going to transition ourselves over to our final regular season top 25, folks. This is it. We've seen everybody play 12 games, and it's hard to believe that this is where we're at. As a show and as a fan base of college football, it's hard to believe the year is already gone. But really, the best games of the year are just about to happen, and we're going to go into this final top 25 here. We may kind of have our top 25 situation maybe changed a little bit next week. We're kind of talking about how we're going to handle things going forward with the schedule of the show and things like that. But this is probably one of the things we'll change up. But for now, here is our final top 25. We'll add it to the screen here. And let's just kind of go through these. James Madison, Clemson, NC State, Toledo, and Liberty are the bottom 5 here. Liberty finishes undefeated. Toledo wins again. JMU had lost one game, but they win. So we felt like it was necessary to throw these teams down in here in the bottom run. They're going to be going to some great bowl games. God bless anybody who has to play these teams because they have everything to prove still. This will be their Super Bowl. They get matched up with a team that's got players sitting out. It's going to be an amazing game. Congratulations to all those fan bases, as I know it has been a very, very exciting season. Clemson creeps back up into the top 25. I think that's very well-deserved, although played a pretty close game, 16-7. They beat South Carolina this past weekend. I would have never thought that it would have been that close. The offense continues to struggle. But this is a good defensive unit that Clemson's got here, and maybe something that they can build on as time goes on. NC State, we talked about just a bit ago, defensive-built football team. Nobody thought they'd be where they're at. 9-3 for the season. Congratulations to the Wolfpack because this has been a very successful season in what a lot of people thought would have been a lost season. What do you think about this bottom 5 here?
Yeah. JMU kind of back in the good graces of college football fans, and after the disappointing loss to App State, Clemson, you mentioned it, still a great defensive team, held South Carolina and a pretty good offense for South Carolina to just 7 points, but only able to score 16 against a really bad offensive or defensive team in South Carolina as well. So don't really know what to expect week in and week out from Clemson here, but they're still a pretty good team from a power ranking perspective. They just seem to not really be able to score a lot of points for whatever reason. And then NC State, the Wolfpack, that other team out of the ACC there, and look, they almost doubled North Carolina's, their in-state rivals' points, and held them to just 20 points. So that was pretty impressive to hold Drake May to only 20 points. Toledo, they just are an absolute rocket. We're the only channel really high on the Toledo Rockets. So welcome, Toledo fans. We appreciate your support. And Liberty Bibberty, they just keep winning. And, they're the what are they, like the Flames? That's right. It's weird. They have a bird as their mascot, but they're the Flames for whatever reason. Pretty funny. They're the flaming birds.
They should change to the Patriots.
Yeah. The
Liberty Patriots. I think that would be pretty cool. And there's not really a good Patriots college football team, but Hugh Freeze left behind obviously a blueprint and a cabinet full of success. Right. I mean, because Liberty wasn't anywhere close to this good before he got there. So maybe seeing into the mind of a mad scientist of Mr. Freeze. Number 20, Tulane, tied at 18. We've got Oklahoma State and Notre Dame. Iowa and Oregon State tied at 16. So we got a couple of ties here on this rung of the college football top 25 for week 14, conference championship week. Oregon State, I think we might catch a little flack for this one. And that's partly my fault, but I just can't keep dropping Oregon State down. They're not a bad football team, people. They're not a bad football team. And I would put them right in there with Iowa. I think they are very comparable to an Iowa. Different styles, obviously. That's not exactly what I mean by exactly like Iowa, but I feel like the resume is a lot the same. I mean, gosh, Oregon State has played one of the toughest schedules in the country this year. I would compare it pretty comparable to like Kentucky, who played Georgia and Alabama this year. Pretty similar to that. Very very tough odds to go in and win those games, and I think their tank was maybe a little empty going into week 13. So I didn't dock them as much this week, and that's kind of on me, but. Iowa 10-2. They deserve to be where they're at. They have no offense whatsoever.
Mhm.
Period. End of discussion. But their defense is tops in the nation. It is very, very, very good. Oklahoma State. I don't know how Gundy does it, but he continues to do it, my friend. And he's got to be just a really good football coach. That's all I mean, that's the only thing that I can come up with because this team lost everything after last year, and here they are going to the Big 12 championship and have a chance to spoil a really, really good season for Texas and clinch that Big 12 championship before the newcomers move in again this year. And Notre Dame absolutely laid the wood to somebody. I can't remember who it was. We talked about the game a little bit in the breakdown episode, but they took care of business and have had a tough enough schedule where I think that they deserve to be there. And Tulane has lost one game this year to the number 10 team in the country. So say what you want. They play close games at Tulane. A
Yeah.
lot of times it wasn't a close game this weekend, but they played a lot of close games this year. And I think that's just kind of their style of football. But they deserve to be where they're at. What do you think about this run?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I mean, Tulane, they kind of handle business right in the same fashion that they've been doing. Notre Dame, that win that you were talking about was against Stanford. They won 156 to
Yeah,
23. Not a great win. I would call it impressive, but anytime you beat a team by 27 points, it's certainly not a bad win. The Cowboys right there tied at 18 with Notre Dame, headed to the Big 12 championship game. So it was a huge win against BYU this week, an overtime win, and let's see what the old fighting Gundys can do against Texas, and see if they. I think Texas is on upset alert. I
for
don't
sure.
necessarily think it's a foregone conclusion that they win this game. But we'll be breaking that one down tomorrow. Y'all come on and watch that one once we get it broken down. Iowa, you mentioned non-existent offense, but they find ways to look the under hit as well in that game. Against Nebraska this week, it was the lowest point total ever in the history of college football, and the under still hit at 25 and a half points. it's incredible. Iowa just finds ways to become impressively very bad at scoring points. So, and then Oregon State, I think it's fine in a top 25 to have a team that we just kind of power rate or rank based on their power ratings a little bit higher than other teams who may have better records. I think that of all the teams on this top 25, I think that Oregon State has had the toughest schedule. So, do with that what you will. They're 8-4. Jonathan Smith is headed off to Michigan State, like you mentioned, and I think that he's riding out on top. This was a pretty impressive season that he put together with the Beavers.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, and if you're tuned in, thank you so much for doing that. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Come hang out with us. You're obviously a college football fan, and we need more of people like you to come hang out at the First and Long College Football Show. We're building a nice little community of folks from all across the country, I can promise you. LSU and Arizona are tied at 14. Oklahoma 13, Louisville 12, Penn State 11. Louisville obviously drops down after the loss to Kentucky. Um, Oklahoma takes care of business. Arizona takes care of business. LSU takes care of business, and Penn State takes care of business. So, they kind of just hung around where they were, maybe moved up a slot or so, depending on the Louisville Ohio State situation. Well, I guess Ohio State's ahead of all of these, so they didn't move up necessarily. But I don't have a ton to add about this run. I mean, we really like Arizona. LSU's got an amazing offense. Oklahoma's got a really good offense, but not a great defense. Louisville is really, I think, kind of balanced. I think they're pretty good at a few different things. And then Penn State is kind of a team that's only lost to a couple of teams that are in the top 10. So you got to have them up there. Good run team, good defensive team. I don't have too much more to add to that. Do you, Mason?
No, I mean this is a row of teams that have a very few amount of losses to really good teams, and that's kind of what happens, for the most part. Gosh, I hope that we see some matchups here in the bowl season coming up. That we can look at and really see who's the better out of this bunch, because I couldn't confidently tell you who it is, if I'm honest. I would say that LSU has the best offense or the best unit overall in their offense of this group of five. But it would be interesting to see maybe that offense versus a Penn State defense or something like that. That would be a fun one to watch. But no, I don't really have anything to add too much to this. I'm wondering if Fisher ends up staying at Arizona or not. I think that if he's staying, they've got to give him a contract extension because he's done such a good job, with them and in this coaching market. I hope that at least that he's looking around and keeping his options open. But that's all I really have for that bunch.
Well, if he's not, then he needs to get Jimmy Sexton as his agent immediately, if not sooner, because Mr. Jimmy will do the searching for you, whether you want it or not. Number 10, Ole Miss. Number 9, Missouri. Number 8, Bama. Number 7, Ohio State. Number 6, Texas. Quentin has commented in the comment section. He said, have you seen Texas? They stop what OSU does best. We'll see. We'll definitely see about that. I don't think this was much of a test this past weekend with Texas Tech necessarily, but this is the best that we've seen Texas look. It seemed to mesh together a whole lot better this week than it had after trying to figure out the Jonathan Brooks situation and see CJ Baxter kind of taking over the reins completely at running back, all those types of things. So not much of a test this past week. Texas did exactly what they were supposed to do and dominated Texas Tech. So, congratulations on a great season for Texas. I know they wish they had that Oklahoma game back, but not going to matter. Not going to matter if you can win next weekend, especially with that quality win against Alabama, who is ranked number 8 here. Alabama takes care of business. I don't know about that. They won the game in the Iron Bowl, and that's all that matters at this point, because if Alabama – they now have a chance to go beat Georgia, who's the number 1 team. And if they do, they're going to the playoff. Okay. End of story. Because that would be the best win of the year in anybody's schedule, sure enough. So the Alabama and the Texas, I feel like, are connected a little bit, because Texas has got that head-to-head win over Alabama. And there's no way that Alabama is moving ahead of Texas without Texas taking their second loss. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Ohio State moves down to number 7. We didn't dock them a ton because this was a really close game against what we consider to be this, tied for the second best team in the country. So we're not going to move Ohio State down, outside of the top 10 at this point, because I just don't see, 10 different teams being able to beat this Ohio State team. So I think that their top 10 ranking is well-deserved, as they only have 1 loss. And it was to the number 2 team in the country. Missouri takes care of business. As I said earlier, Missouri's a good team. Newsflash, if you don't know that yet. Now you do. That's why you turn in the First and Long college football show. That's why you tune in. And Ole Miss, 10-2 this year, took care of Mississippi State. They're going to a really good bowl game this year. Very successful season for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels. What do you think about this group before we crawl into the top 5?
Yeah, this is an interesting group. Obviously Texas is knocking on the door of being in that top 4. Need a little bit to work in their favor, but that either Washington or Oregon will be bouncing out after this week. And I'm interested to see how the committee would compare a Jordan Travis less team and Florida State at quarterback for them, and how they would compare them to a Texas team that I'm assuming is going to win the Big 12 championship next week, and whether or not they keep, put the Longhorns in or not. That'll be interesting. Ohio State, I'm kind of playing through it in my head. I don't see a way that they can end up in the playoffs. They would need a lot to happen, I think, for them to be considered for the playoffs in the top four. Alabama, you mentioned it, just take care of business against Georgia and you're in. And then Missouri and Ole Miss sitting there at 9-10 and wondering who their opponents are going to be in a New Year's Six bowl potentially. I think that Missouri should definitely be in a New Year's Six bowl, and I really think that Ole Miss should be as well. It's just tough to put two SEC teams in those bowl games that aren't playoff contenders.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's crawl into the top five. 4 of these teams out of the top 5 here are undefeated. And if they stay undefeated and win the conference championship, there's your top 4. I mean, that's the way it's going to go down. It's going to be Georgia, Washington, Michigan, and Florida State. So all 4 of these teams completely control their own destiny. But we've got Oregon stuck in there at number 4. And I think anybody with a set of eyeballs could watch Oregon and watch Florida State, and the eye test is going to come out in favor of Oregon. I don't think anybody would argue that. But Oregon has to beat Washington. Michigan is going to beat Iowa. There's no way Iowa wins that football game with that offense against that defense. There is no way. Florida State has got a big hurdle to jump over with Louisville. I keep mispronouncing it. Comment section told us it's Louisville, not the live chat, but the other day. So Louisville is a big hurdle to jump over. They said it's not Louisville. I said, well, sure it is.
Haven't you heard the song Louisville Slugger to both headlights? Like, it's Louisville. It's not.
What do they want me to say? Louisville?
Louisville. I don't know. That's weird.
My
Even
God.
for a Southerner like us, it's like that's kind of a weird thing to pick at.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. Somebody out there repping for the Big L, right?
We'll just call it Elville.
Elville or the Ville, I think is what they prefer.
There you go. I like that.
I think all the top 5 here is pretty self-explanatory as to why these teams are here. I think you could, Ohio State fans could maybe like make an argument about Oregon. Maybe Oregon should be farther down. Maybe Texas, feels like Oregon should be, below them. I could see where those arguments could be made. But it's all going to come down to Friday night in Vegas anyway. So whether we had Oregon at 9 or number 4, if they beat Washington, they're in the top 4. Zero doubt about that. So
I think that's the most impactful game left to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it could set off some dominoes for sure. Between that and the ACC championship, I feel like those games are the 2 that are most up for grabs. But conference championship week is upon us, man. And we're going to know this time next week, we're going to know exactly what's going on in the college football playoff. So I cannot wait to see that. Do you have our college football playoff predictions available?
Yeah,
Mason?
I do. I will just stay on this page and turn the page here.
And here we are. Playoff predictor. First up, Georgia Bulldogs. Number 1. Number 2, Michigan Wolverines. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Texas. What's your thoughts on this, Mason? So we think that Texas is going to win out. We think Florida State's going to lose. We think Oregon's going to win.
Pretty much. I think that's kind of where we've been thinking. Now, if you watched our prediction last week, Ohio State was in there at number 2 instead of Michigan. Obviously, Michigan beats Ohio State, so they deserve to overtake them in the number 2 slot. But I also think that with excuse me, with Florida State, who is the team left out here. We were expecting them to lose to either Florida or Louisville. Louisville, excuse me, Louisville. Um, and and so far, I mean, they beat Florida. That was a closer game than I think some people predicted. But now they got to beat Louisville. So let's see if they can do it. And if not, or if they are able to do it, I think that they would be in that 4th slot more than likely.
Yeah.
But without Jordan Travis, let's see what the committee thinks. Let's see if Rodemaker kind of passes that eye test next week. I thought he did a good job, but not great. This past week in his first game on the road in an SEC environment, he looked very nervous. But let's see what he does against Louisville, and see if they can kind of creep their way up. But I do think that Texas has kind of passed the eye test for me to be a top 4 team. I do believe that Oregon will come out on top this time against Washington in Vegas. Of course, Michigan, I think will pummel Iowa, and I think that Georgia is going to remain on top and take the number 1 seed and play in the Sugar Bowl. And their opponent is to be determined.
Yep, absolutely. There's a few things that got to happen to make this happen. But it's not cutting time. It's that time. We're gonna figure this out this week, and it's gonna come down to conference championship games, like it always should. The only team that is a lock for this thing is Michigan. I mean, that's the only team that is a lock for the playoffs at this point, in my eyes. So that's kind of how we see it, folks. Let us know in the comment section what you think about that. Hit the like button for our video. It really helps a little show like us out. We're just now starting to take off, and that's a lot of help to all you college football fans. So we thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to have our game breakdowns tomorrow. We're going to do that live, and then the little clips will be released to all the fan bases throughout the week, and we will be gearing up for conference championship Friday and Saturday. And we will be having our Between the Lines show on Thursday. So come and check that out. That is our weekly college football betting show. Have a lot of fun with that. Didn't do so good, or I didn't do so good this past week. I don't know what you did, but
That was 1 game under 500. So,
well,
not terrible.
You're lucky, sir. Because I was more than that.
Yeah.
Didn't go over, but I certainly didn't light it up. So we'll see if we can right those wrongs this week in Between the Lines college football betting show that's brought to you by First and Long College Football Show. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We certainly appreciated all you folks that tuned in live and commented. We really, really appreciate that. And if you're not subscribed, we hope you'll consider that. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you, and see you tomorrow.